You don't have to know everything about investing to begin asking better questions about what your money is supporting. A lot of people want their money to reflect what they care about, but investing can feel intimidating, confusing, or disconnected from real life. In this episode, we're going to talk about what values aligned investing really means, why women's financial power matters, and how community can help people move from confusion or intimidation into confidence and action. The goal today is to help listeners understand that investing is not only a technical financial decision, it can also be deeply human and connected to identity, values, impact, and the kind of future we want to help build. Today, I'm joined by Jensyn Hallett. Jensyn is an advocate for the purpose-driven economy and a fellow of the Just Economy Institute. She is the founder and CEO of Alivest, a company dedicated to helping others develop integrated strategies to transform their capital into tools for intentional impact. And her extensive experience in impact investing has shaped her expertise in the intersection of gender and finance. Jensyn previously led Invest for Better Circles and recently developed and instructed the first impact investing course in her home state of Arkansas. Driven by her passion for gender equity and entrepreneurship, Jensyn also founded Southern Capital Project, a nonprofit focused on ensuring equitable wealth building opportunities for women in the South. She believes that with more intentional investment, we can build stronger and more resilient communities. Welcome, Jensyn.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me, Linda.
Of course, of course. So, first of all, before we even get into you, tell us what is impact investing?
Oh, what a great question to start off with. So, impact investing really is simply investing in a way that considers financial return and real world impact. So, thinking about what you care about, the values you hold, and shifting your money to invest in a way that aligns with those values.
Great. And what drew you to focus on this specific aspect of investing?
Well, it really started off from where I grew up. I'm from the southern US, and you probably know and have experienced, but women are often at the forefront of change, whether that's in their churches or their families or whatnot, but very often also aren't in control of their financial lives. They don't have control over their money, their finances. In a traditional community, like in the southern part of the United States, oftentimes those financial decisions for the family live with the man. And I grew up in the South working in Arkansas and also worked within philanthropy and just saw that a lot of the women who were stepping more into that financial conversation were focused on philanthropy. But I had learned in my work that there were multiple other ways to make an impact using your capital, such as impact investing. And so really wanted to make a difference in that space and encourage more women to step into learning about their money and the impact they can make using their money in multiple ways.
Yeah, I can see that through line there, how it all connects and serves that bigger purpose. When you talk about women reshaping the financial future, in like real life practical terms, how do you see that working?
Well, women already control trillions of dollars in the United States. And even women who may not consider themselves investors still are often in control of the consumer choices that they make as a family, the spending choices. We're choosing where we bank, and that can make a huge impact, where our savings accounts are, our 401ks. Some of those accounts that some people don't necessarily think about when they think about being an investor. Every small shift with money and shifting it to align with values can add up to big impact. So the more and more women who really take note and step into this financial ownership and build their confidence over time, start taking action, all of those, even small actions can add up to great impact over time. And as women start to take more action, even if it's small, like opening a new bank account with a values aligned bank, those types of things can add up and build more confidence so that the next step might be a bigger step, shifting more money because the confidence is there and the experience is there.
Yeah, so a lot of what you're talking about is about women having the power and choosing the right values aligned things. Is there a point in time when you realized that investing was more about just the money and that you could make these choices that were values aligned?
Ooh. Well, I'll say my background is in community and economic development. So I used to work at Heifer International and mostly with donors in the philanthropy side. And at one point, I realized that we're working in these ecosystems, right? And that we could have a greater impact if we figured out how to bring in investing and philanthropy together, because all capital is really a vote for what type of world you want to see. And how do we bring those both in together under the same purpose? And that's really when I started to get more and more interested in this type of space.
And so, what do you think the biggest misconceptions that people have about values based investing are?
The greatest myth that I hear about, well, I guess there's two that I can highlight. One is that it's only for wealthy people, which is not true because I mentioned earlier, even small shifts in where you bank or where your 401k is invested, those can add up to great impact. But the other one is that you have to give up financial return in order to make an impact or to actually do impact investing. And that's also not true. And there's multiple examples. I'm not going to highlight one right now because I don't want it to come off like I'm recommending a specific investment, but folks can reach out to me and I'm happy to share some examples. But there's research out there. Veris Wealth has done some research and has some case studies, and Invest for Better, the organization that I work with, we have done a few different sessions with examples, just showing how you can invest in your values and make a financial return at the same time.
Great. Yeah, because I think that is something that I hear that, I want to do values based investing, but I'm going to earn less than I would earn otherwise. So I have to give up that growth on my money in order to do that. So I love that you have resources out there, and we'll get to how people can find you later in the podcast. But yeah, I love that.
Well, and I just wanted to add also, we've come a long way, because I feel like a couple years ago, maybe a decade ago, there were very few choices, even in the public marketplace. And now there's so many social impact funds focusing on ESG, which is environmental, social, and governance factors. And so there's a lot of options right now.
So if someone has never looked at their investments through that lens before, where would they start?
I would say with where you are right now, wherever you're starting from, you're not behind. This is one thing that I remind women. You're not behind. This isn't about what you should have done in the past. It's always about where we can go from here. So taking a look at where your money is now. Most people, particularly women, have money sitting either in a 401k, a savings account, an IRA, and they've never really looked at it with this lens. So I would suggest folks start somewhere that feels easy, and maybe that's your bank account. And there are a couple different websites where you can take a look at your bank and evaluate how they invest your money. Because one thing that folks don't often realize is that your money is not just sitting in a drawer somewhere in a bank. It's actually right? Being, exactly. It's there whenever you need it. The bank is using your money to invest in other things and are often making money using your money. So what are they using your money for? And there are websites, one's called Mighty Deposits, one's Bank for Good, where you can actually look up your bank and see how they're investing. And you can look up banks that are doing maybe better in your area and open a new banking account or savings account and see how it goes. Can slowly move money over there, see how it goes. Changing a bank does feel like a big step. I know, I've also gone through it. And so I think banking is a really easy place to start. And then another one is kind of in your 401k, having conversations with your financial advisors about what exists, what options you have for moving to socially responsible funds.
Yeah. Are there specific questions that people should be asking?
One of the first questions that I usually suggest is, what are your values? What type of impact do you want to have on the world? Do you have specific themes you're interested in, whether it's water conservation, the environment, gender, climate finance? When you start looking on, like in the public marketplace, that's really important because, as an example, if you have a 401k and you're invested in a fund there, a specific product in your 401k, you can look it up. There's a website that I often refer folks to called asyousow.org. I feel like I'm just throwing out websites as we go. Asyousow.org. You can actually put in the ticker, the code for the investment, and pull up a rating of that investment fund and see how it does along these different themes. And so if you don't want to invest in something like weapons of mass destruction or private prisons, you can go to asyousow.org and very specifically find things that are focused on removing those types of investments. So I just think that's a really good resource and a good place to start is kind of, what are your values to begin with? And you can still do some general impact funds or savings bonds, things like that. But I think knowing your value is really important, your values.
Great. Well, thanks for sharing the resources. I want to start talking about, as women can start to make changes to what they're doing, how they're investing, and how they think of themselves. And I think Invest for Better says money shapes the world. It's time more women took the lead. And I love that message.
Yeah.
What do you tell me more about that, and how women can start to see themselves differently, not just as savers or budgeters, but as investors and decision makers?
Oh, I love that framing. So often we are taught to save, right? And it is very important for us to also step in and learn how to invest. That's where the real wealth, the generational wealth is coming up. I always tell folks there's two ways to build wealth: business ownership and investing. They're like the top two. But one of the things that I often point out is, we're in the middle of one of the largest shifts of wealth in history, and women are at the center of it. And that means that this isn't just about our individual decisions anymore, because the more women who take ownership of their money and start investing, particularly if they start paying attention to that impact lens, we're not just moving money. We have the opportunity to move entire markets. The question isn't really about whether or not women are going to build wealth anymore. It's actually more about what that wealth is going to build. So we are at a crucial time to decide and to take ownership of that money and to shift it to invest in the world that we want to see in the future.
Well, that makes us sound very powerful now, doesn't it?
Exactly. We are. It's already in our grasp. It's already in our power. I just want more women to step in. And really, it's mostly about confidence. A lot of it is about confidence and not feeling invited in.
Right. And why do you think so many women underestimate that?
That's a great question. Honestly, I think it's just socially. we haven't been taught. We haven't been taught to invest. We haven't been brought to that table, taught about how to generate wealth for ourselves, our communities, our families, generational wealth. We have often been taught to save and budget and be more careful with money instead of thinking more long term. I've talked to multiple women, even financial advisors, who, or even one of my favorite examples is a woman who manages a multi-million dollar endowment for a foundation. And when I asked her about her personal finances, she was silent. She said that her husband handles all their finances. And I think that we just socially haven't been brought into those conversations and often don't have to. But then it can, I think we have the power to step in and make some changes that align with women's voices, our needs. There's a lot of not just power in that, there's strengthening the whole economy in that. So I think it's really important.
Yeah. Okay, so tell us about Invest for Better and the work that the organization's doing.
Mm-hmm. Invest for Better is a nonprofit that helps women align their full financial lives with their values. So we start with banking accounts and go all the way up. We cover multiple asset classes in our programs where we do education. But Invest for Better is really also just creating a movement of women who are taking ownership of their financial lives, working together, regardless of where someone is starting from.
And tell us about the Invest for Better circles.
Yeah, we have Invest for Better circles, which are typically made up, they're intentionally small groups of women, mostly virtual, but some of them are hybrid, where they meet together for 7 sessions and learn how to shift their money to align with their values. What's great is that the intentionally small group can really get deeper and share some of their challenges, their questions. We have circles who started a couple years together and are still meeting here and there to check in even after the program has ended. One of the things that we have been working on is also regional hubs, which is different from the circles. But I will tell you, the reason the regional hub started up is because one region in the United States had so many circles where women were meeting virtually, but they wanted to start getting together in person. And so we started a regional hub in Philadelphia. It's called IFB Philly. And they have been getting together once a month. It's a group of maybe over 100 women. And it's amazing. They meet every month. And it really started off with more of the circle experience, but it has grown from there. And now we've launched a regional hub in San Francisco, and we're looking at a couple other potential places.
That's fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
What kinds of conversations are the women having in these spaces that they don't have a place to have elsewhere?
The honest ones. One of the things that I love about the circles and about them being intentionally small is that you really get to know the group pretty quickly. Especially most of our leaders of the circles are trained. They know this curriculum. They're trained facilitators. They're really good at creating a safe space and opening up conversation for folks to really share where they are. So some of the conversations, let's see, I've been married 20 years and don't know what we own, or I inherited money and feel guilty about having it, but also want to invest it in my values. I make good money, but I'm not really sure that I know what I'm doing investing. I had a conversation with a woman the other day who had recently gone through a circle, and she was saying one of the things that kept coming up for her while she was going through the session was she had inherited wealth, and she realized that internally she kept questioning whether or not she was doing this stuff correctly. I don't if you quote unquote, if you can see it, but whether or not she was doing it correctly, investing correctly, because she was investing alongside her values. And she and I had this whole conversation about like the feminization of wealth and feminization of investing. And just because we're doing it differently doesn't mean that that's wrong. You know, if women are paying more and more attention to their values and the impact that their investments have, less so than just profit driven, that doesn't mean that it's wrong or incorrect. It's just different maybe than how it's been done. And so it was interesting hearing her talk about, you know, I've inherited this wealth and I just keep thinking, am I doing this correctly? She has a financial advisor. She's not out there doing it all on her own, but it was just a good conversation for us to like pay attention to as we move through this journey.
Yeah, that makes sense. What kinds of emotions do you see come up for women when they start talking about and learning about investing?
One of the greatest one is fear. Fear that they're going to mess up, that they're not doing it correctly, that they're going to lose their money. That's why I think that the circle experience and learning together is so important, because one of the things I've seen is that, you know, women, we don't typically learn by sitting alone and figuring it out. Often we learn in conversation, we learn by asking questions, we learn by seeing and hearing what others are doing and slowly taking some steps that build confidence. And then I've seen, you know, after some of those like repetitions, you know, learning, building confidence, women start taking action. And once you've taken an action, your confidence goes up, and then you'll take a little bigger action. And before you know it, you're calling your friends about investment opportunities. That's the goal. Or that's what I always say. I want my friends to be the type of friends that call me. I mean, this is what the men do, right? They have buddies and they're all calling each other and they're like, hey, I've got this investment opportunity. We're all putting in this amount. This is what I want my friends to do.
I love it. Yeah. Spreading the word, right? Okay.
Right.
So the shame and intimidation starts to go away once they start to learn about this, and then they start sharing it with other people, right? All right. So tell us who needs to find your work and how they can find you.
Well, Invest for Better works with women across the spectrum. You know, we have two different curriculums. One of our curriculums is meant for professional women who are making income and they're ready to take some ownership, make some shifts in their investments, but they don't have to be accredited. And I'm not sure, does your audience know the...
They don't. Feel free to tell us.
Wow, I don't know if I know it off the top of my head. In order to be accredited, you have to have a net worth of over $1 million, not including your primary residence, or make $250,000 a year. I think that's 2 or 3 years in a row. So that is what makes someone accredited. And we have one curriculum where women really don't have to be accredited. Some women are, but they still like to start there. And then we have another curriculum that's really more geared towards high net wealth women, where they are accredited, they already own wealth, they already have their wealth, and they're looking to figure out how to shift that wealth to align with their values across the board. So I'd say one is more aspiring wealth, and the other is those who already have wealth. So we have two different places. Investforbetter.org is a great space to find more information about our work. We're also always looking for folks who want to take more of a lead in this journey. So we have an application process where we take on new circle leaders once a year and kind of onboard new volunteers to lead circles. And then also, if anyone's ever interested in starting a regional hub in their area, they could reach out to us. They could find me on LinkedIn, Jensyn Hallett. Yeah. And we also have a group on LinkedIn for Invest for Better if someone wants to engage more there.
Great. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Anything else that you want to share with our listeners before we sign off?
Well, I would say, I have 3 takeaways that I actually often share with women. And one of them, number 1, is start seeing yourself as an investor. Not in 6 months after you join and go through that curriculum, or after you take a course, but today, see yourself as an investor. Number 2, pay attention to impact. Take a look at where your investments or where your money currently lives. Make some shifts, or even one shift. And number 3 is invite others in. We learn best in community. So even if it's a small group of women, friends, that you gather together, you start talking about money. If you see opportunities, share it with a friend. So those are my 3 suggestions for women who are getting started.
Thanks so much, Jensyn. I really appreciate you being here today and sharing this with us. And for everyone listening, thanks for listening to the end. And just remember, you don't have to know everything. Just start asking better questions and learn about what your money is supporting.